Hello, how are you?
Hi, Claire.
How's it going?
It's good. Happy Sunday.
Happy Sunday.
It is beautiful out.
It is a little hotter than I'm ready for, but uh, can't
I'll
figure out.
never complain when it's hot,
I
ever.
don't know. That's true. That's true. We should replay this in January when it's really cold.
It'll be
No.
January soon enough. I
I
will never
know.
complain that it's too hot.
So I'm so excited to talk with you a little bit today about your new book coming out, right? Every Child Can Write. I have it digitally, but I did want people to see how beautiful the cover is, so I printed out a copy of it.
Right,
Can't wait
it
to
was
get my
big.
hands on the paper one, but it's just, it makes you want, it makes them want to write, right? I think it sums up so much of the book. Love it.
It's what I want people to come away with. It's like, yeah, every child can write. Like, we have to believe that, right? Like that. I didn't start with the title right away. It was sort of it built its way, and it was like during a conversation I think with my editor Tori, where it was like, it's every child can write, and that just stuck. So
You also give us strong images right from the start, right? This idea of entry points, bridges, and pathways. Right? I think it causes you to sort of pause and really think about those images in relations to kids. So how did you come up with those?
that was also organic. It was like a conversation, and I think, I have heard that people start with the title and they keep their title all the way through, and that was not my process. It was kind of one of those things that we discovered along the way. So, and then I think we played with a couple other different images. I can't even remember what they were, but basically, like, the entry points, bridges, and pathways worked so well because it just was what the book's about, right? Like, it's where can children find their way into the writing process, and how can we, like, I envision, like, back the wagon up so that they can get on. I think sometimes we just blow right by them and they're kind of left along the pathway going like, wait, I don't know what you're talking about. And then the pathways, or no, the bridges came to me because as I was writing it, my youngest daughter was learning to drive, literally. And this was, this is one of the anecdotes that's in there. Each chapter begins with an anecdote, or almost every one. I think every chapter does. But there's the one where I described Cecily getting onto the highway, and she was always fine when she got on the highway, but those on-ramps they were terrifying, right?
I didn't teach my kids to drive. I couldn't do it. Couldn't do it.
But I think that in writing, sometimes if we get them up the on-ramp, they can, like, navigate the highway, and we can think of it that way too. And then they're on the pathway.
Right.
So those were sort of some of the ways that I think entry points and bridges came to be. And I just always see writing as a pathway. I've always seen it that way.
And I think for me, like, the pathways also, while there's entry points, there is a path, because I think a lot of teachers I'm working with and meeting there's a wide range of needs in classrooms today. And then some teachers are facing really high class sizes and, giving a way that makes this doable. And I think those visuals honor the fact that there are going to be different entry points, but that, as you're saying, once you're on, right, there is a path that's there to support and bridge, but it's not like you're trying to go on, 20 different roads. There is this path. So I was thinking a little bit about advice you'd give, for teachers to stay the course, to take a step back and realize there's this range, but to use this to kind of have a plan of what they're going to do with that range.
So, as you were talking, I think that a lot of teachers, and, I think sometimes myself included, get caught up in the product. And, we really, really have to honor the process of writing. It's a process. And when we're trying to get kids to create this beautiful product, sometimes we don't do a good enough job at teaching them the skills that they need to do it independently along the way. And, it was funny, like, I was kind of going back into the book and thinking about scaffolds, and one of the things, and it's my first book, so I've never had a book where I've had an index. I was like, and I looked at the index, I'm like, oh my gosh, there's like so many mentions of scaffold. And I think that scaffold is such an important concept for teachers. And I guess one of the pieces of advice I would say is know when you're using a scaffold. Right. And have a plan to take it away, and know that it's a light enough scaffold that you're going to be able to take it away, right? Like sometimes I think that we do so much for students to get them to create the product that is grade level appropriate, or what we expect a fifth grader to be able to do in any fifth grader, that we don't take them back to the level that they can really do independently. And we learn much more powerfully and at much higher rates if we're being taught at a level that we can do independently, and just pushed a little bit out of that, right? It's like that zone of proximal development thinking.
And I think it's so important you talk about removing the scaffold, because I think sometimes I think we're bombarding kids with so many scaffolds, right? And trying so many things that then they're stuck with all these tools. They don't even know how to use them. And then we have to take them away. So I do love the fact that you're really clear on this isn't to get them, right, to do some product that we have in our head. This is to really look at them and with them and decide what is that next step. I felt the whole book was like, one step at a time, right? What's that next step? And I think that made it feel really doable.
I think that one of the things that I tried to emphasize and really bring up is the whole concept of the zone of proximal development. Again, I think about my daughters, and again, this story happened as I was sort of envisioning the book and writing the book, where my daughter, who is a college athlete, talked me into going for a run. And I don't run. I'm not you, Claire.
I think we walked on the beach once, if I remember, but we didn't run.
I am really comfortable in a yoga class and really not comfortable with running shoes. But I was like, all right, I'll do this. It was Thanksgiving morning, and she wanted to run fast and far, and it was way, way too hard for me. And I was sore the next day, and I was sore the next day after that. And I was just like, I'm never running again. Right. And I think that is, it's kind of a funny thing to think about in terms of me and running, but it's a serious thing to think about in terms of kids and writing, because I think that we ask kids over and over and over again to do things that are the equivalent of me running 5 miles with my daughter. And that's a terrible feeling. It's like you don't want to keep going, and you don't want to do it again. And if I had gone for a run once around the track, I might have been like ready and willing to do it again the next day. Even excited, like, maybe I'll try two laps around.
Right. I mean, there is that human motivation, right, and engagement. And I think you really touch on that well when you talk about involving kids in this process. That I think you really, I loved that whole viewpoint of it's not even enough for us to scaffold them. We have to involve them, right, in that conversation of where do they see themselves? What do they see as that next step? And what I loved about it is I think it really showed easy and just natural ways to talk to kids and to really notice and name and celebrate the work they were doing. And then naturally, I think you don't go 5 miles, right? When you start with the person and they say where they are, I think it's easier than to make a nudge as opposed to a lap rather than 5 miles. And I think that worked so well, and they were creating these tools and scaffolds with you, which was part of that process. So I'd love to hear how that's been working and some tips you have for teachers in involving kids in this process.
One of the debates that I have been having with some of my colleagues has to do with learning progressions, right? And one of the things, and again, I don't have a hard copy of the book yet, or it would be easy for me to pull it up and show it. But one of the things that I have a lot of in the appendix, and I talk about in the book, is the idea of a writing progression. And here is what an introduction looks like at a second grade level or a third grade level or a fourth grade level, or you can mark it as a 1-star or 2-star or 3-star or level 1, 2, 3, whatever you're comfortable with. The debate that we have had is whether or not students should know whether it's grade 2 or grade 3 or grade 4, like if that's demoralizing for them or not. For me, I think share it with them. Like, this is, set your goal. And if you are operating at the second grade level and you're going to go for that and you're a fourth grader, that's okay, because you're going to move and you're going to see how you're going to move. And I think that when kids can see that clarity and say, that is what I'm going to reach for, and I know exactly what I have to do to reach for it, and then I can reach for the next step, and then I can reach to the step where is really where I want to be, that gives them a clear pathway. Again, we're back on that pathway, but it lets them say, this is where I am right now, and I'm comfortable with that, sort of, but I'm going to set my goal and see what I need to do to push it forward.
It's hard to get better at something if you don't know what you're trying to get better at, right?
Right. It gives them a really clear visual of what it looks like and how to work forward to it. And I think, it's like part of John Hattie's visible learning. Like, how can we create that clarity for kids and for ourselves to know what the expectation is and know the increments to get there, so that it's not just this pie in the sky that you're like, I think I want to do it that way, but you don't really know how to get there.
And the brain research shows, which is fascinating. I think it was Christine Mraz who I heard this from, but the ability to change the neural pathway and how we perceive feedback, and that kids are still so young that we have the ability to change that, and so that they don't hear feedback as something that's a negative, but rather it's something that you lean into and want to do something about. It's how we present it. And I think this generation is they're going to be getting feedback their whole lives, whether it's social media, like whatever. Like, this is such a connected group of learners, and it's going to continue to be that way. And so if we have the ability to not only help them grow as writers, but to help them know how to grow, and part of growth is feedback, right? That's life. So I really love that part, because I think kids can handle it. And in some ways, I almost feel like they have a little bit of a bravado. They're like, well,
it's empowering for them, right? It's like, I know where I am, and I know what I can do, and I have some tools and resources that are going to help me get there. It's not like, oh, I just don't know, or it's not like I'm going to wait for that lady to tell me exactly what to do next. It's like, no, step it up and figure out your pathway.
I feel some kids actually think the gap's going to be bigger. And then sometimes they see it like, okay, well, that's not so bad. Like,
right?
I think sometimes the anticipatory anxiety of what it's going to be is worse than what it actually is.
Right? You make it manageable, and you pull it down, and it's manageable. And, when you were asking about teachers, and it's the same thing for kids, like, writing is like spinning plates. Like, it's hard. It's like there are so many things to do and hold on to, and you can't do it all at the same time, whether you're a teacher teaching it or a learner learning how to do it. And sometimes you're going to be really good at something, and something else is going to fall flat. So, I think what I have tried to do for both teachers and for students too is say, like, there are times when kids are going to need their own tools, because they're going to be at different places in their process, and you can supply those too.
And sometimes falling flat is learning, right? You can't learn without falling flat. And I think that piece is something that we have to all start feeling better about. I think for teachers and for students, that we're just,
again, that process, not product thing, right?
It's hard. It is hard. But the tools, I think, that you provide, teachers are going to love the visuals. This is why it's hard for us not to be able to show them. They have great visuals.
I have one that I like, and it sort of is related to that. It's like a favorite tool. And this is a picture of one of the interactive bulletin boards that we create, and I have a few pictures of them, I think, in the book. I don't know if it shows up on the, okay. But basically it connects to the whole idea of giving kids tools. So not everybody is going to need the same thing at the same time. And this is sort of a way where you can say, you know what, you are ready to go pull a chart about how to use transition words. Why don't you grab that and be on your own, have a look at it, and remind yourself of that lesson you had it. Or even better yet, a student could be working independently at their desk and just decide they're going to go get, like, have a look at it and be like, oh, that's, I'm at a place where I need a reminder how to do an introduction. Like, I can go get it. And again, it's, you know, one of the things that I hope the book gives people is how to empower kids and set them up to be captains of their own writing at times, or to take just that little bit of scaffold that they need. It's a lighter scaffold if you're going, if the child is going up and picking it for yourself, right? As opposed to being told to go get it, or as opposed to being given it and told to use it. Like,
right. Or put it in your notebook when you're in third grade and then find it. Right. So I love that part, because I'm just finding a lot of kids struggling with a notebook, organizing it, finding it, making it a tool, because I think in the moment, it's not linear, right? The way they
it's
paint the note, it's like, whoa.
Yeah.
So the board, like, you can, one, they're moving, which I don't think they're moving enough. And the brain research is showing, like, just by getting up and going to this board, they're going to unlock something. But I just love that we're not asking kids to organize this in a notebook, because I think some
I
of
wouldn't
it,
be able to do it. Like,
I don't do
I
it.
wouldn't be able to find it.
I
I'd
don't
be
do
like,
it. Yeah.
so,
So I love that. And I think kids could start to put in things too. Like, they could start to create pockets on that board.
and
Right?
that's the ultimate. And in some of the teachers' rooms, and this is like, you know, post writing the book and clearly post publication, but some of the teachers are really doing that. I mean, and that's like a whole nother level. Like, can you make that tool for the rest of us?
Right.
Like, that's a cool place to be.
That's awesome.
So,
And then you have a lot of tips with technology, because we are in a digital world. So you do have some suggestions of ways to do this digitally. What are some ideas that you're going to share teachers can look forward to? Because so many, I'm included, always learning in the area of digital.
you know, I feel like as soon as you put something in a book about digital, it's like obsolete.
Yes.
Right? Because it's like, oh, that was like last year and now it's better. But I think, you know, there are some students who do really, really well with the whole talk to text idea. But they haven't been taught to do it effectively. And so one of the things that I really emphasized in there is how to teach kids to use talk to text in an effective way, so that it doesn't just become a hot mess as they talk. Like, I think that there's a lot of planning and preparation that has to go in, and to get you ready in order to speak what you're going to have come out on the computer screen, period, because otherwise you don't have it come out correctly, comma, and it ends up just a hot mess full of words that don't make sense, exclamation point, right? Like, you have to teach them how to speak with punctuation and make sure it gets included, and make sure your thoughts come out in a connected way. That's a skill. Even as I'm sitting here talking to you, I'm thinking about what a skill it is to speak cohesively and coherently and in an organized fashion. So I talk a lot about that. The other thing that I can't believe more teachers just don't take me right up on it as soon as I show them is the idea of using Google Forms for conferring. I really offer up the links and all of the technology that I can give teachers in order to just, you know, run it either on their QR code or through a link, so that they can just take the Google Forms that I've created and use them right away with their classes and their students. But basically what it allows you to do is pull it instantly, a list of compliments that are really specific to levels and grades, and a list of teaching points the same way. So it allows you to not have to know all of the standards by heart, or all of the expectations right off the top of your head, but still have clarity with just having something to teach a student that is meaningful and important in the next step. So I think those give teachers a clear pathway, right? It's not just students who need clear pathways, we need them too.
Right.
Of what is a teaching point that's going to make sense for the student who's sitting in front of me at this level right now. So there's that. And you know, I think, and I try to really say this, that we can think in terms of technology in categories. So there's technology that is really going to just take the place of non-technology. And then there's technology that's just going to change the whole entire thing of what you're doing. And I think as no matter what kind we're using and what's obsolete and what's new and what's the latest product, that's a really helpful way to think about it. Like,
right.
Is this a substitute, or is this going to be like an entire re-envisioning of something that we haven't done before?
That is really helpful.
So,
because it is ever changing, but I do think there's a lot of things that can help kids if, as you're saying, we teach them. And I do think that's important, that we need to show them how to use it. It's not going to be a scaffold if they don't know, right, how to use it, and to gradually release that as well. So whereas sometimes I think I see technology being used as a substitute, like to keep someone busy, rather than showing them, right, how to use it as a tool independently over time.
Right.
I think that came through really well, and I think that's important. Because all of a sudden,
well, it's that
it,
intentionality, right? And
right.
there's that intentionality that I hope comes through with all of it. Like whether it's the intentionality of going and picking your chart, or whether it's the intentionality of using a specific computer program or a specific technology modification or accommodation. Like what's the reason for it, and how is it going to create a positive pathway for our writers?
Yeah, that thinking for teachers, I think, is so important. And I loved you added this piece throughout the book for literacy leaders and teachers to pause for PD. And I think I loved that. I think it reminded all of us that we're constantly learning, especially with this group of kids. They are kids for whom they're teaching us all the time to be better and better at what we do if we slow down enough, right, to really think about it, that it's not just for them. I think it's also for us. So I'd love to hear more about, your thoughts when you put that in and what you're hoping it will provide for people.
The pause for PD.
Yeah.
That was another one that it was like one of those conversations I was having with Tori, and we were both like thinking, how could we get people to interact with some of what's in the book? And I think it was, it came to us quickly. I was like, it's just a pause for PD, like just time out. And, I think that sometimes, at least for me, I read professional books quickly. And there's stuff in there that maybe if I lingered on longer, right, I would internalize it better or use it and be more effective about maybe what was meant within the pages. And there are some books where like I'll tag pages and go back to them and revisit them and be like, oh yeah, that was there. But I was really trying to underline some of the parts in the book where I think are worth lingering, right? And I think, for instance, I think I have one here, and I think that's kind of what the text teacher looks like. But even just in the beginning, this pause for PD was like, stop and linger and think about who your kids are who do keep you up at night, and spend some time thinking about what you know about them as people and what you want to learn about them and how you want to help them. And then maybe reflect on them as you read this book and come up with strategies that might help them. Like make this chart that you're going to go back to and revisit as you read it for strategies that might help them. Like that's a big linger for the book. Like it's actually like interact with it. Like put your kids down and have them in your head as you're reading the book so that you can come up with strategies and to help them move as writers. So that was an example of it. But then there's, there's other pause for PDs where I think that we need to do more spying on ourselves as writers than we do. And try the work of making a progression yourself. Like hit a pause, decide that you're going to write, I don't know, a beginning to a story, and write it in a 1-star way, then a 2-star, then a 3-star way, right? And spy on yourself and really think, what's the work that I had to do? Right. Because we're better teachers when we understand that. And so that was part of why those are in there. They were really like the parts where I wanted to be there with teachers who are reading the book going, let's just try this. Like, just try this. Have at it. Don't just use mine.
Right. And great invitation for grade level teams to do this work together. If they're reading it together, it's going to be great, I think, for book clubs, for schools. So many schools do book clubs. And I think, even people have certain professional development times. They're not sure what to do. People often ask. I think it's going to really invite people to sort of think through and pause and support each other as well, which would be so exciting.
I hope I give enough for them to do that. That was my goal. Like, I hope that becomes like real events that happen. That would be so cool.
It would be cool. It would be. Right. That's the best. So when is this book? When's your book birthday?
I'm hoping October 1st. Everything has been kind of what they've said it was going to be, and that's what they've been saying.
All right.
Any day. I'm like, any day I'll like the house to the mail come. Like,
oh, so exciting.
Anything for me? I'm looking forward to seeing how it looks in real life.
All right. Well, I pre-ordered mine, so it should be coming soon. I was early, so I hate when that happens and you don't get it for a while and everyone's talking about it. So I'm excited to see it. So congratulations.